Karli Pidgeon. I am born and raised here in Baton Rouge. Lived here all my life until I went to college, which was at Spelman College in Atlanta. I have actually a degree in computer science and worked in corporate America for a year. I was a government contractor for Lockheed Martin and absolutely hated it. And so realized that, like, God, this can't be it. Like, this can't be what I have to do for the rest of my life. And so switched over to the other side of my brain and taught dance for a couple years and was a literal starving artist. And then God called me into ministry.
That is Reverend Karli Pidgeon, our guest today on the Louisiana NOW podcast. Welcome in, everyone. Great to have you along with us. I am your host, Todd Rossnagel. Karli Pidgeon, as you heard there, is from Louisiana and has been in pastoral ministry since 2007. Pidgeon has been appointed by Bishop Cynthia Fierro Harvey as the next District Superintendent inside the Louisiana Conference. In fact, she is the first AfricanAmerican female to be appointed as a district superintendent in Louisiana. I have known Karli for several years now, and I know you will enjoy our conversation. We're going to cover a lot of ground, including a story of when she sort of kind of called me out on Facebook, a story that taught me a lot, and I hope it teaches you a lot, and I hope it sheds some light on her passion for justice. Karli has served in both the Northern Illinois Conference at Leland and Sudan churches there, and here in Louisiana at Asbury Emmanuel Rosa in the Natchitoches area, Asbury UMC and Northwestern Wesley Campus Ministry, Cornerstone in New Orleans, and now the Associate Director of the Office of Congregational Development and Transformation. We began our conversation with the significance of her being the first African-American female district superintendent, a fact that is not lost on Pidgeon.
It's 2020, and we're just now getting our first African-American female district superintendent. Says a lot about kind of the progress that has been made within the world, but also how far we have yet to come. That we're still experiencing those types of first. Pretty much every appointment that I've been in, I've been the first female or the first African American or what have you, and so it just kind of continues on the trend of what my life has been and where we have where we're going. I think to have a more diverse cabinet table speaks a lot to the diversity that is within our country, within our state, as well as within our communities, and so we should be reflective in our leadership as in how we speak truth to power and to continue to value every voice that is out there.
When you hear the word superintendent, what comes to mind? I've been really thinking about, like, what does it mean to be a superintendent in this day and age? Because I do believe that we're in a new season of life, particularly with this whole COVID-19 thing, but just in ministry right now and where the church is. And so my hope for superintendency is to be a resource, to be a help, to be a guide. Also, there is accountability and supervision that goes with that. But truly, I hope to walk alongside our pastors in our churches to truly be the churches that God has called us all to be. As much as you're the first African-American female district superintendent of the conference, what I think is perhaps just as impactful is that you're the first post-COVID-19 district superintendent, which sounds a little odd to even say. Yeah. But how do you see the church changing, pivoting, moving in a completely different direction post-COVID world?
Right. So, because we've been now social distancing and, kind of staying at home for, I guess 6-8 weeks now almost. And
almost 2 months.
I know it's crazy. Where we will have to continue some of these practices. Will continue throughout this next year, maybe even a couple years. And so I think we really do at this point have to figure out what it means to be the church, how we do church differently. Online is here to stay. I think, at one point we kind of, walked into being online reticently, whereas now we have to fully embrace all the technology and jump kind of head first into some of these options to provide opportunities to reach the masses. It's been fun and exciting to watch on Sunday mornings, just the number of folks who have never been online now trying to figure out, even if it's just with their phone or their computer, to say, hey, I'm just here to speak a word of hope and of healing and of promise, and in the good news to, to the community, which they've never done before. And so I'm excited about what that looks like for our churches and for our pastors. And I hope to continue to help shape and embrace and to even guide folks to what does this look like moving forward, and how do we continue to be the church in this new age, because it's so different from where we were just even 2 months ago, I would say.
Karli, as you know, and I know as well, God is always 2 steps ahead of us. I find it interesting that God placed you in the office of Congregational Development and Transformation prior to being a district superintendent. What will you take with you from your rather brief time with Reverend Gloria Fowler and her team in the office of Congregational Development and Transformation into your new role?
Yes, so much. So much of the work that we have been doing in that office, in the Office of Congregational Development, has been about helping our churches and our pastors be more vital. And I think that work will still continue through the superintendency, to be able to recognize and give honest assessments to my pastors and our churches, to say, hey, this is kind of where you are, and this is what I see, and this is what from an outside perspective, this is what I think might work, and be able to help resource our churches and our pastors for greater ministry and greater outreach and greater community engagement. And so those types of things, just kind of those core beliefs that our office kind of stands on. How can I bring that to the district to make sure that our churches are being vital and reaching to the community and meeting new people and all those types of things that we strive to do.
Your office was just down the hall from mine on the 3rd floor, and we will miss you. I will miss you, but know that. And one of the things that I really love about Gloria and her team, and the Serena and Rhonda and you and the entire team at Congregational Development and Transformation, is you guys get genuinely as excited as someone who is excited about a new ministry. And I can't help but think how many new types of ministry are going to be birthed after COVID.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, like we have been so inspired just again by watching what some of our transformation pastors are doing, and some of the pastors kind of across the country. And we are genuinely like, oh my God, yes, okay, what can we do to continue to innovate? One of our core values as an office is to always be innovating and striving for excellence. And so what does it mean to always kind of be looking at the current reality and saying, okay, what do we need to shift? How do we need to find new ways and new perspectives? And so it's just been a joy for us to be able to kind of reinvent ourselves, even in this moment, to say, okay, this is what we've been doing, but how can we do that better moving forward into this, post-COVID-19 world?
From Spelman to Garrett, you've been all over, but yet Louisiana is home. And this question is about what Louisiana has to offer for someone who might be pondering where to do ministry. Besides amazing food and amazing scenery, what would you say Louisiana has to offer, Karli?
Yes. Well, I mean, you can't beat Louisiana as far as food and fun and energy and people. I think our people are amazing as far as just really being creative. And I think what's unique about the Louisiana Conference is that, one of the values of the conference is about taking smart risk. And I think that there is so much opportunity out there for us to try new things. For if you've got a dream or a vision for what, God is placing on your heart and the ministry that you have, there really is space for that. And there is many opportunities within this conference to say, you know what, this is kind of what I'm seeing, this is what I'm feeling, and is there a place for me within that? And from what I've seen, there have been work to try to make sure that people's gifts are really used and flourished in amazing ways. And so Louisiana is a great place to come and to serve and to be uplifted and to also share your gifts. So we invite you to come on down.
We are back with more from our guest, the Reverend Karli Pidgeon, in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor, the United Methodist Foundation of Louisiana. They are up to something big. They want to help you with your most unique ministry idea. With the quarantine in place and an unknown end date, churches and pastors are having to rise to the occasion and get creative with ministry. For some, it's broadcasting worship services online, Bible studies over the internet. All of these unique ideas cost money. And that's where the foundation comes in. Your foundation has set aside $100,000 to award to churches and ministries within the Louisiana Annual Conference to help fund creative ministry. The idea must support evangelism, mission, and/or outreach during this unprecedented time, and they are encouraging all of us to use our imagination and to use our hearts. If you have any questions, need to read the nitty-gritty details, you can head to their website, umf.org, more specifically, umf.org/unique.
God is challenging us and inviting us and saying, and what else is it going to take for you to tell the story? We have to change the narrative of what it looks like to be a child of God. We have to change the narrative of what people are saying about God's people. We've got to be able to tell the truth about how hard life has been. But yet, it could have been even harder without the saving love of Jesus. Who have you told your story to? We all have a story. We've been in a car accident and flipped over 5 times and walked away without a scratch. God did that.
Back now to our interview with the Reverend Karli Pidgeon. Just a brief sampling there of her preaching. I asked her, has she missed preaching since being inside the conference office, and will she miss it in her new appointment as a district superintendent?
No, because we still did it a lot. We throughout the church transformation process, we preached pretty much every Sunday at whatever church we were visiting and working with. But also, I've been invited to preach in a variety of places that normally I probably wouldn't have been able to because I had my own pulpit to fill. So that's been exciting for people to call me up and say, hey, I'd love for you to come and preach for our Women's Day or whatever random, our church anniversary. And so I have not missed preaching at all because I've done it quite often. It has been different, especially in this time. I have felt like, I wonder how I would have stepped into this role of kind of now being an online pastor now that, but because I don't have a congregation responsible for at this point. What would I have done in this season and at this time? And so that part of me, I've missed just kind of the opportunity to see what that would look like. But I'm still preaching regularly.
Amen. Karli, you have an ability to speak to an issue and to raise an issue or raise awareness to an issue. What are some things that you would like to see change in the Louisiana Conference, knowing full well that Karli Pidgeon isn't going to be able to wave a magic wand and solve things, but what are some areas of growth or opportunities in Louisiana?
I think, a big part of our growth and in some places that we need to spend some time in is really helping develop leaders. I know that there's been a bit of a vacuum of upcoming leadership. And so I would love to see a way to really continue to work to develop young leaders, new leaders, folks that are feeling a tug from God and a heart for ministry, but not really knowing how to do that and what steps to take. And so that part I really would want to, what would hope to see, in continuing to really be bolstered up, because I think we've got to really reach into our college campuses, even our high schools, our young people, just folks who just might be kind of out there feeling like, God is doing something in my heart, but I don't really know what that is, what that feels like. And it's not just gas, right? It's something. It's not just a dream I had. It's actually, something real. And there really is a tug from God, and I need help kind of walking with that. And so I would want us to really do a better job of reaching those folks and kind of giving them opportunities to experience Christ in new and amazing ways. And then also, I think, is how can we help bolster up our small churches? I think most of our conferences is made up of a lot of small churches, and so what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it so that way? And there might be some unique models that we haven't even tried yet of how do we share resources, how do we come together and work collaboratively. I think we have to try to figure out ways that we can still be the church in the places that God has called us to, but yet maybe not in the same place. I think, if anything, what COVID has proved to us is that the church is not the building. And so how do we be the church that might include not having a building or selling a building or what have you, and not getting caught up in that, and still being the church that God wants us to be?
Karli, I want to bring up an issue that had a profound effect on me and my role as a communicator, and quite frankly, our friendship. And for that, we have to go back to Charlottesville.
Several people were injured and at least one person was arrested during a demonstration by white nationalists at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville last night. Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Hundreds of marchers carried torches and chanted before fights broke out near a statue of Thomas Jefferson. They were protesting the planned removal of a Confederate monument from a city park. Police used pepper spray to control the crowd. Nearly 1,000 officers will be on hand.
I published on our website and subsequently Facebook a statement by Bishop Cynthia Fierro Harvey, which I do from time to time. I attached a photo, which in this case was an African-American female victim being transported via the ambulance, but also being carried by a white man. And you objected to that photo. You, in some ways, kind of called me out on Facebook for it, tagging me in your response. Before I get any deeper, I want to pause right there and explain to the audience, or I want you to explain to the audience why you objected to that photo.
Sure. So Charlottesville was kind of, after a string of so much violence happening, particularly to African-American people. A lot of it happening by the police, some, happening just as a result of white supremacy. And so there has been this connection of violence towards to African-American people. And so I just felt like that image, particularly around that story of Charlottesville, was really about white supremacy, more so than about the victimization of African-American people. And so I objected because I do believe that the more and more you see those images, the more you become desensitized to it. And I just feel like we can't be desensitized to the violence and the objectivization that is happening to the African-American community. And so I just felt like, really? Like, why are we choosing this when there are so many other images out there? Like, there are, the men with the stakes and the fire and stuff. And so that to me was the image of what this was about, what Charlottesville was about white supremacy and hatred and racism and prejudice, not about the victimization of African American people.
Well, and the reason I'm bringing this up, Karli, is you made me, first of all, I want to thank you for your courage and even bringing it up, because a lot of times I think people will have a thought and it just remains in an echo chamber. So I want to thank you for that. You helped me, I guess, in some way ponder not only the power of images, but the power that white privilege, says white guy Todd Rossnagel, in selecting the images and how those images affect the public discourse. But mainly, Karli, and this is what I want our audience to know, I am forever grateful for that, because it was a lesson, but also your passion for justice and your ability to communicate that in a very profound and impactful way will forever resonate with me.
Well, I appreciate you even, taking the time to have the dialogue and the conversation, because I did wrestle. Like I probably scrolled past that thing 5 times before I said, "Am I?" And I thought
Do I
about
hit send?
exactly, like, do I actually say something? Do I not? Do I send a private note to Todd? Do I put it publicly on the on the Louisiana Conference page? Like, I just had so many wrestling moments and thought of, what, this really does need to be a public moment. And granted, we had a conversation privately, but I think I needed to at least state it publicly, so that way at least someone else could see that, what, no, I don't agree with this, and this is not, what is right. And so part of my calling has always been about justice and speaking truth to power, and to giving voice to the voiceless and to those who have been on the margins. And so even when I try to be quiet, it just doesn't work. But I feel like, that's truly me living into my calling of who God made me to be, is to really, and I wished more of us could speak truth to power, and when we see things, for us to speak out about it, and for us to stand against injustice. It can't just be, always the black, as people call it, the angry black woman, speaking truth. I think everybody has to use the privilege that we all have to speak against what we see, what we experience, what we see others experiencing, so that way we can truly change this world.
Reverend Karli Pidgeon, from her home, like all of us these days, pastor and preacher and friend and new district superintendent in the Louisiana Conference. We thank you for your time, Karli.
Thank you.
Pidgeon's appointment begins July 1. In the meantime, she continues to work inside the Office of Congregational Development and Transformation. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Louisiana Now podcast. If you have a moment, please share it with someone you know. Leave us a review on iTunes. For whatever reason, that seems to be the biggest way that our podcast can get featured. So leaving us a review on iTunes really helps out. Thanks again for joining us, and remember, keep loving God, keep loving yourself, keep loving others, no matter what.